Hi, I'm Keta Loren with StraitJacket Podcast, and today we have our guest Kelson with us. Hi, Kelson. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm amazing, actually, and it's such a pleasure to have you on. Kelson is a chef, and right now she has 7 months of recovery. Not your first time doing it, but
No.
doing it, nonetheless. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
Straight into it.
So I'm 47 years old. I was born and raised here in Old Town Orange.
Okay.
Went to private Christian school all my life up until high school. And then my parents just kind of threw me in and went to public high school. And I started drinking and using prior to public high school, back when I was going to Christian school.
Yeah, it's a good introduction.
They always that's where it started.
They always say that like Christian schools are worse than public schools.
They're awful.
Yeah.
They're awful because you're forced into believing something, and then, things happen along the way. And it kind of drags you away from that. Am I allowed to talk about anything?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're molested by your youth counselor, things kind of take a turn with your religious beliefs, and you don't really
that violation of power is that's insane. Yeah.
So went through high school and nothing was normal. I always had friends. I never felt alone. I never didn't have like a group of people around me because I never said no to anything.
Okay.
I always was sure. Okay. I don't really think I ever asked what something was. I was just presented something and I just took it.
I never this experience, yes to this one, yes to that one.
And back then, I didn't have to worry if it was going to kill me. I just did it, and it was fun, it wasn't, but I still did it anyways.
The times have changed.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, started kind of getting real dark in my disease, late 20s. And when I started having to go to jail and detoxes, I did a little geographical. I moved out towards Newport, Costa Mesa area for about 15 years.
Oh, a baby geographical.
A baby geographical.
Okay, but like 30 miles for our listeners.
If you're this north of the 405, like that seems like a world away.
Yeah, and especially if it's all you've ever known, you've never left. Yeah, absolutely.
I did live in Utah for 9 months, but I don't remember much of it.
Because of using?
Yeah, I was in a blackout the whole time.
That's a long blackout, girl.
It's a long blackout. My father passed away a few years ago, and I decided about a year and a half ago to move back to Orange. And so I've been here and just rebuilding my fellowship here, and I love it. It's home.
Yeah, that's
I'm living
amazing.
like a block from where I grew up, and it's just home. So
okay.
Yeah.
So, with you growing up in Orange, did you have both parents in the home? And so you had like a kind of cookie cutter. No. Okay.
No. My dad was married twice and had 4 sons before he met my mom. And then they had me. And then they got married like a few years later.
Okay.
And I actually grew up on a cul-de-sac in Orange. It was a brand new like track home area. And one day my mom was outside watering the lawn and she saw this kid roll by on his big wheel, and she like took a double take, and come to find out my stepbrother and his family, his mom had moved them into the head of our cul-de-sac. And so I grew up on the same street as my half brother.
Okay.
And when I was about 12, my second oldest brother and my oldest brother got in touch with my dad, and he was in treatment for drugs and alcohol. And we kind of became this giant extended family where I was, getting to know my 2 oldest brothers. I had a niece, and then shortly after I had a nephew. And it was just this big, weird extended family where my mom and dad and I would go to his first wife's house and her husband's house for Christmas. And it was, my 2 oldest brothers, my middle brother, and then I had another brother too who he has passed. And so has that brother. But
so your family, like, you didn't grow up with these siblings, though. You knew
sort
they
of.
existed. Okay,
kind of, sort of, because
they were
lived
next
on the
door.
Same street. Yeah.
Okay, but
when I was 12, I got introduced to my other 2 brothers, and
that's so long.
It was normal for me.
Okay,
it was normal for me growing up like that, and I'm being like 4 years older than my niece. It's my dad and my mom had quite an age gap, and so my brothers and I are. My brother could technically be my father, like in age-wise, but. It was normal for me, but nothing growing up was really normal. My dad was a very dramatic, drastic, gnarly type 4 alcoholic.
Okay.
There was a lot of yelling. There was some physical abuse. Nothing that, looking back now, wasn't normal back then for my
Right.
generation. Today,
You'd go to jail.
Yeah, for
Kids
sure.
would be taken. They'd sell your dog.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
But back then, it was just a very typical alcoholic home. My mom was an enabler, total normie. I think I've seen her drunk maybe once. But she was that person that, the house was immaculate. Everything was done the right way.
Like the outside looked good.
The
because
outside
the
looked great.
inside was
Yeah.
falling apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, there were a lot of things that happened to me as a child that didn't make me an alcoholic.
Okay.
But growing up in that environment, like I never didn't want to not be like my father. I just didn't know what it meant. And I remember being called an alcoholic once at a bar. I had like chucked a shot glass at some chick's head, and this guy was like, "You're a fucking alcoholic." And I'm like, "How dare you?"
How dare you make me like my dad?
Well, today I'm grateful that I'm an alcoholic, and I know that I have a disease that has a solution, and I know what my solution is. But back then I was like, absolutely not. How dare you?
Because you weren't done yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of puts a little bit of a damper on it.
When you're 22, 23 years old, you're just getting started. Well,
Yeah.
The first thing that I ever did, I was 12, and I smoked speed out of a light bulb.
Who'd you do that with? Because I have this
Neighborhood
thing.
kids.
The kids?
Yeah, kids in the
Because I'm
neighborhood.
like, there's always some weird adult who's like getting 12-year-old girls high. And it's like, who is doing this?
No.
Like,
It was my other 12-year-old friend. We were all latchkey kids. Our parents
Yeah.
all worked, and so we had, especially during the summertime, we just had empty homes. And so it was, whose house we're going to go to and get loaded today. I mean, I was 12
I just had a
years-
flashback of the salt and getting the white powder out of the thing. I don't know, in the light bulb. I'm like having it.
It was nasty. Well, it was weird because like I started with that, and then I smoked pot, and then I drank. But once I drank for the first time, that was it.
Yeah,
That
you
was
were
it.
home.
And I didn't start with beer. I never liked beer because it didn't do anything fast enough for me.
Yeah, what was your go-to?
Jägermeister, Aftershock, Goldschlager, stuff that you're immediately going to puke up.
Yeah.
And that was just it. Like I needed the relief
Immediate
fast.
effect.
I needed faster. I never drank because I wanted to pair fish with wine. I drank because it got, and I don't like being kind of buzzed. Like it pisses me off. Like I don't want to kind of feel loaded or kind of be tipsy. I want to be blackout drunk.
Belligerent.
Don't know your name. Don't care.
Don't know my name.
Don't know my name. Don't care. I just want to be obliterated.
Right.
And that's how I drank. Always. Like I never did anything half-assed when it came to getting drunk and loaded. I mean, I was 13 years old doing lines in my school bathroom, and I mean, it just there was never. I was talking about this with somebody yesterday, and we were talking about projectile vomiting at one of the bathrooms in the circle, and I was like, I've really gone pretty hard my whole life. Like it's never been moderate at all.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think it's kind of like a hook, line, and sinker deal. You know what I mean? It's like there's a goal here. The goal is like full
Yeah.
relief. Like I want to be completely out of my head so that I'm out of my fucking head, you know?
I wanted to shut this off for whatever reason. I was really overweight as a kid. Not as a kid, but as like later in my teens. And then I just got fat, like really fat. And then I had weight loss surgery, and I got down to like really super disgustingly gross, sick, skinny. And that caused a lot of health problems. I was in the hospital a lot. You know, when you belly bomb meth, it tends to rip up your insides, and it just putting myself through these things over
Belly
and
bomb
over.
meaning eating it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Again, you know, I don't like to do things half-assed, so it was like I just needed that immediate
Yeah.
relief. And I remember, you know, your drug progression goes from, you know, you snort a few lines at a party and you're drinking, and then it kind of progresses into the type of people you're hanging out with, where you're going to maybe smoke a little meth, and you're going to do a little bit more, and then things tend to get a little darker.
Yeah.
And then you start like shooting stuff, and then at that point is when like anybody normal in your life dissipates, and you're kind of left with just the bottom of the barrel, just bottom dwellers, and you're constantly looking over your shoulder at real and imaginary people, and life just gets really dark. And the people you hang out with get really shady, and things get really sad.
Yeah.
And, it progresses that way. And, I was drinking, and this is no exaggeration, and I've got people here to attest. Like, I was drinking a gallon of vodka a day, and it's easy to do.
Oh my
when
God,
that's
you're
all
a miracle.
You're doing. When that's all you're doing.
Yeah. Did you ever look at the people that you were around and like judge them and then be like, fuck, I'm in the same room?
Yeah.
And
all
you're
the
like,
time.
I would just judge myself.
Like dirtbag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things. It's like we surround ourselves with people who will tolerate or like are doing the same thing that we are at the level that we're doing it, so that we're a part of and we're not feeling like we're that bad, or people that are worse than us a little bit.
Yeah.
So that we're like, no, I'm not as bad as them. But then you're like, I'm in the same room as them.
Well, when you have who you think are pretty just gnarly people, individuals who you've seen just do horrible, horrendous things and go till the wheels fall off, telling you you're gnarly, you kind of want to take a step back and look at that. But it didn't bother me. It was never a competition or a contest. And I didn't feel like I was ever in competition or contest with anybody. It was like, I'm just really selfish and I just need to feel the way I need to feel.
Yeah.
I mean, hiding alcohol in various places all over, hiding drugs just so that I would always have it.
Yeah.
I can honestly say like I never had to do anything super shady or sell myself to get what I needed. I always had the car, the apartment, the job. I always had that like front.
Yeah.
So I always had people that had a place to go, and those people that needed a place to go always had the drugs. And so it was a nice fair trade until it wasn't. I remember my first raid like it was yesterday.
Oh yeah, you never forget it. Tell me all about it.
Well, I mean, I was living in Old Town Orange. My dear friend Erin here was living with me, and it started off just, young adults. We were, working and partying quite a bit, but it was at that point in our life where it was still okay.
The consequences hadn't shown up yet.
I've never had them. That was the thing. Part of my problem and part of why I kept going for so long is my consequences. Like, I have gotten so extremely lucky. I've been raided and they have found stuff, but that's not what they were looking for. I've had my car pulled over and they didn't see it, or I was told to just get rid of the container, or, I mean, I can't even tell you in an hour and a half how many times I just got really, really lucky.
Or did you? Was it?
I know. I think back and I'm like, I really should be in prison, or, there should be something, some consequence. But as many times as I've been arrested and put in jail, like it was overnight or for like a few days or whatever. But just no DUI. And I can't even tell you sometimes how I got home.
How are you emotionally with that? Because I always say that, like, I wish I was like the people who like go so hard that they hit rock bottom really quickly and know that they have a problem. Like me, I can do extended use for a long time, and like it takes me so long to get to the end of the rope that I've wasted so much time and I'm miserable the entire time. And then when I finally do submit to myself that there's an issue here because there's consequences, finally I'm like, fuck, I wasted so much time. So like, how was that emotionally for you? And like that reality, like, did it ever hit you that like,
I truly believe I'm a psychopath. Like, I really truly don't understand. Like, my brain still can't comprehend the things that have happened to me, that I've lived through, and that I've walked through, and then today I'm just like, it wasn't that bad. And we talk about that all the time. We talk about how, the book talks about it. The guy comes up out of the cellar and he's like, ain't it great the wind stopped blowing? And everybody around him is like absolutely mortified, like wiping off the dust, just like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
Like, you just put us through absolute hell. And we're like, it was fine. It was no big deal. I mean, a little over 3 years ago, I was at a place where I was taking just handfuls of opiates on a daily basis, handfuls, and drinking as much as I could. To the point where my boyfriend at the time didn't want to leave me alone in the house, and went to work one day and immediately turned around and came back and found me unresponsive and called the ambulance. And one more time, I was taken to the hospital. And about an hour later, he got a phone call and they were like, are you the decision maker? And he was like, what are you talking about? And they said, well, she's not responding to the Narcan. She's not coming out of this. Like, she's not waking up. We don't, what do you want to do? And I was placed into a coma, and I apparently, from what I was told, I was like trying to rip everything out and detoxing really heavily. And for 6 days, like, my family was there, everybody was there, not knowing if I was going to wake up. And I woke up, and the first thing I thought about was my job. I was like, I need to find out if I still have a job. Like, what's going on? I'd already been fired, like, unbeknownst to me. But my brain was so full of ammonia, and I was hallucinating for a few days after I came out of the coma. It hadn't hit me yet.
Is that common?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't speak.
Like motor skills were off.
Completely. I couldn't walk.
Okay.
I had to have a catheter. It was awful. And they were blending up my food. It was disgusting.
How long was the recovery, and what was that like? How did it walk me through that?
When I woke up, my family was there. Honey came and she yelled at me. Yeah. And my friends were there, and there was nothing important that I was thinking of at that time. I just kept asking for Jamba Juice, and I kept asking about my job.
Yeah.
The most unimportant things ever.
Yeah.
And I was in the hospital for about 10 days after that, I think. And like I said, I couldn't feed myself. They weren't allowing me food other than liquid stuff. I
soft diet, yeah.
was trying to walk, function. I couldn't do anything. And they were talking about putting me in a nursing home. It was really awful. So I ended up being released, and I came home. And the doctor,
Your parents or?
My parents lived in Orange at the time.
Okay.
And my mom came and stayed with me, and for a night, I think. And I don't know. I was told by several doctors while I was still in the hospital, they have seen like really horrible cases before, and they were absolutely floored. This one woman, it sounded like she was reciting a page from the big book, but she's like, I believe in facts and science. And she said, I don't know how you're sitting here alive today. And I was like, and she said, if you ever go out there again, you're going to die. I had stage 4 liver failure, and I was dying, like dead.
Yeah.
And I came home, and I was pretty much confined to my living room, and
due to not being able to walk and move, or
I could like make it to the bathroom and stuff, but and we get better. We're resilient. We get better. I got better.
Yeah.
And I got a job immediately working in treatment, because that's what we do. And, early recovery.
Well, you couldn't have kept it a secret, because I know sometimes people will lie and hide things and then go back into working into treatment. So.
Oh, I did. I mean, yeah, I was totally getting loaded the entire time I was working there. And I owe that man an amends, my employer. But I went back to work, and I was working in treatment. This was like a month later. And 2 weeks into working, I thought it'd be a good idea to call my doctor and get a script again for narcotics and start drinking again, after I just went through all of the things I had to go through.
Addiction makes no sense. It boggles the normal mind. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so off I was again. And that wasn't the first or the last time. I mean, I would like to say that was enough, and it wasn't. Yeah. My dad died a couple years later, and I barely was able to get through. I didn't get through that, but I was able to like sober up enough to have a funeral for him, and then I just couldn't hold it together. It's been a lot. I've not walked through a lot, and I've been through a lot, and I forget. We have the great forgetting problem of what we've been through.
Too quickly.
Yeah.
How quickly we forget. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that's always jarring and shocking, is like we can have these experiences that like if you were to read it in a book or hear it on a podcast, you'd be like, yeah, I would quit. Like that would be my sign from God. Like that would be it. And it's like, nah, I think I got one more in me, and that's like the phenomenon that occurs. It's baffling, Absolutely. Like it makes absolutely no sense to the normal mind. With your dad's passing, you said you sobered up enough for that, but I know that like grief is a huge thing with, it's something I've went out over. And so like feel like sometimes when you have those types of experiences, it's just like, why try? Why even care? Like, it's the only thing you can do to kind of deal with the pain.
I just didn't know who was going to be on my side. My mom not understanding, my dad understanding, and always being so proud of me when I would get sober and stay sober for a while.
Yeah.
You know, my dad, looking back now, my dad is the one that understood me the most. And because he's been there.
Did he get into recovery before his death?
He got sober.
Okay.
He didn't ever go to a meeting or work with a sponsor.
Okay.
He just decided he was done.
He quit drinking.
Yeah. My grandfather, the same way. He drink at Christmas, set it down on the table, and he said, "This is the last drink you're ever going to see me drink." And he meant it. You know, my dad died with 17 years sober.
Yeah.
And my mom didn't take it well. You know, she completely spiraled. And
were they still together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Long marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over 40 years. So it's, you know, she didn't handle it well. And so I really even today, haven't had a chance to properly process that. I've been taking care of my mom, who's decided she's, you know, going to just give up on life. And
what does that look like? Like depression?
Depression, yeah. Procrastination, just not wanting to do anything to take care of herself. I know it's onset dementia.
Oh,
I think it's a trauma response as well, just, you know, not knowing what to do. You've been with the same person for 40 years, right. And now they're gone. Like, what do you do? But instead of trying to, like, pick up the pieces and move on, it's like, we're just going to wave a white flag and give up. And that just, to me, is unacceptable. So I don't know how I'm handling it with her, if I'm doing all the things the right way. I think I am. You know, I don't have a lot of help, but I do the best I can.
Yeah, and I think with things like that, like, what's the right way? What's the right way? You know, like, we do the best, like you said, with what we can. And I think if you're sure that you're doing that, then, you know, that's all you can do. There's no manual on how to deal with these things, especially when you have obviously so many things that are on your plate as well. And, like, your history as well, like things that you need to be taking care of with self, and then you have this person, but it may be like helping you out at the same time, helping her in some weird way. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's keeping you,
it's teaching me patience and tolerance. And, you know, my sponsor is tremendous, and she gives me direction, and I take it today. But it's hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So this last time that you got sober or clean, is it clean and sober? Both. Okay. Was that the time after you were working in treatment, or, okay, take me back to there. Let's go back there.
There have been just so many openings and closings of different doors. I was in a relationship with somebody for about 5 years, and it was off and on, but we lived together the whole time. Separate rooms, separate lives, separate everything.
Interesting.
It was.
How long was that relationship?
5 years.
And did it start that way?
It was weird all the way around. It was like we moved in together because it was convenient. And then it was just
too much.
Kind of. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't stay sober.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't stay sober, and here
I'm a little avoidant, so I'm like, I don't know. Sounds good. No.
But you get a total narcissistic person who thinks they know everything and who wants to tell you how to stay sober and do all these things when he doesn't go to a meeting ever, but he's got a little bit of time under his belt.
Is he an addict as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he was sober. He is sober. I don't know if he is or not anymore, but
right.
Living with somebody who knows it all and is a total narcissist. I mean, I was afraid to do anything. Like, I didn't, even when I was sober, I was being accused of not being clean and sober, so I would just get loaded just to spite him, even though I was only doing that for myself.
You're punishing yourself to punish him.
Exactly.
Yeah. We shoot ourselves in the foot.
All the time.
Yeah.
But he had walked through the coma with me. He had walked through several relapses, my father's death, a lot. And then there just came a point in time where I decided, like, I'm not going to hide getting loaded anymore. He had to have the ambulance come and Narcan me in the bathroom a couple times. Like, it was bad. And this guy, I mean, despite his faults,
granted,
and his narcissism and all of it, like, my part is I stayed. My part is I was getting loaded. I see my part. One day, he just up and moved out, and I was left in that apartment alone, and he ended up moving in with his sister who lived 2 apartments over downstairs. And I'm like, you gotta go. You either gotta go or just go. Like, you can't just. And I was terrified. I spiraled into this depression, not because of the loss of him and that relationship. I actually felt relief just because I was like, okay, now I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, now I can get loaded.
Now I can do what I want.
Yep.
You're not going to stop me. But I was terrified because I was taking a lot of pills that I was purchasing on the street, and a lot of it was fentanyl. And I was alone, and I was terrified that I was going to drink myself to death or something. So I ended up completely abandoning that apartment. And kind of fast forward, ended up going back into Yellowstone. Okay. Had a couple of friends completely pack up my apartment and sell a bunch of stuff. I never went back.
Good friends.
Yeah, and I never went back. And I couldn't even tell you to this day, like, what's missing and what's not.
Yeah.
And I don't care. I had to get out of that apartment because it was at that point, it was my life or stuff and things. And like for the first time I decided, I guess I'll save my life.
Yeah. And then also, that's a place where you've almost died like 9 times or more or less. I don't know what the exact number is, but like there's, the ghosts of your decisions living there too, all by yourself.
I can't even drive by that apartment complex and not like get the heebie-jeebies. Like I just don't like it.
I can only imagine that, like, because I've had experiences like that where I'm like, this place is tainted. I've ruined it. And
but everywhere I go, there I'm at. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that, there's a part of us that just, like, wants to escape our past. And so we run from it. And, it doesn't bode well with results, but it's very typical and common. It's not uncommon at all.
My past has proven to be very helpful.
Yeah.
I used to sponsor just a handful of women, and I would run meetings, and everywhere I go, there they'd be. We'd go to meetings together, and it truly was the highlight of my life. It was when I was at Yellowstone, so I was living at Yellowstone, managing a house. I was sponsoring the woman that we were co-managing, so we shared a room, and we worked at the same treatment center.
That sounds like too much, to be honest.
It was too much.
Yeah.
We ended up dissolving that sponsorship relationship. We're still best of friends today, but and she stayed sober. She's got 13 years. Her name's Rachel. She's amazing. But we have been through so much. And I just remember having all these women and having it be a purpose in my life. And then something, I know what happened. I met him. I was managing a house, and he was a SASCA client at Yellowstone. And of course,
what's SASCA?
It's where you're state funded because you were in prison.
Okay.
He had CDC numbers and tattoos.
Did he find Jesus when he was in prison?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, I love those ones.
And so he was a client. I was a house manager. I ended up being asked to leave.
For fraternizing.
It happens. And I ended up getting an apartment and moved him right on in. We ended up getting married, and then he died about, I think, a year before my dad died. Fentanyl.
Okay.
Anyways, we had been separated for quite a while, and we had rekindled a friendship and hung out a couple times and were able to be friends. I hated this man. Like, I hated him with every fiber of my being. I wanted nothing to do with him. And, there was that force of nature that there was an amends that was made on his part. I made my amends. We were able to spend a little bit of quality time together, and then he died. And I'm forever grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous for that opportunity, because I would have felt terrible if he would have died and we were on the terms that we were on prior. So I'm very grateful for that.
It's like your higher power gave you that opportunity,
exactly,
so that you could have peace with his goodbye.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Same thing with my dad. My dad and I had a wonderful day a couple days before he passed. I had a conversation with him the day before, and it was just like one of those things. Looking back now, that was a God thing.
Yeah. How did you? That story is really interesting to me about that was it a fiance or just a partner? The guy, did you guys end up getting married? Or you said you got married?
The one from Yellowstone?
Yeah.
Oh, we got married.
Okay.
Yeah.
How'd you guys meet? Tell me about how you guys met.
He was a client at Yellowstone, and I was one of the house managers, and he wore me down.
He wore you down?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always wonder how that because it's not the first time it's happened. It
No.
won't be the last time,
No.
you know what I mean? So I was just wonder, how that occurs in...
It's just you start talking or whatever, and then, you get cell phone numbers, and then you start texting, and then all of a sudden,
You're in it too deep.
all of a sudden we're picking out flowers and sending out invitations. I knew, though. I knew as I was walking down the aisle, I'm like, this is a horrible idea.
Yeah.
It was the greatest little Halloween party ever.
It was a Halloween wedding?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, it was great, but that was it. I
Okay.
came home. I had 4.5 years sober, and I came home from work one day, and he couldn't draw a sober breath the entire time we were together. But, I came home from work one day, and he was just chin to chest, just nodded out, and I'm like, fuck
And
it.
you're sober during this time?
Yeah.
Okay, during the beginning of the relationship,
Yeah.
and then you went out during the relationship.
Yeah, I came home, and he was nodded out, and I'm like, fuck it. And I went and got sushi and vodka and just said, I'm good.
Cheers,
Yeah.
bitches. Yeah.
Cheers, bitches. Exactly. And that just took, a whole different turn. That turned extremely ugly, extremely fast.
Are you like an angry drinker?
It depends on who I'm around.
Yeah.
Depends on what I'm
It's
doing.
provoking you.
Exactly. For the most part, I'm a lot of fun. I used to be a lot of fun when
Right.
we could go to the bar and play pool and hang out. Fun. You throw in other substances and circumstances, things change.
Yeah.
But the end days of drinking haven't been me at a bar hanging out or going on, Catalina wine mixers. It was me in my bedroom, violently ill, drinking so I can function. So it really depends on the progression and where I'm at.
Walk me through the emotional space of that. You're in your room. You can't stop drinking. You don't want to stop drinking. You're drinking a handle a day. You're alone. You are obviously like depressed from it, sad. Like what is your thought? What is the thought in your mind?
Well, I've got 100 forms of fear, and I don't know how to deal with any of them, and I don't want to think about them, and the only way I can stop thinking about them is to numb them, and the only way I can numb them is with drugs and alcohol. And so, it gets to a point where I'm either trying to order alcohol and I can't find my ID, so they won't deliver it, which is another, I don't know, God shot of some sort. Because I sure as shit am not going to get in my car and drive to the liquor store. And I remember throwing my hair up in a messy bun, barely getting dressed, and like walking to the corner liquor store. And I walked in, and the guy working was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No." And I said, "I can't find my wallet. I can't find my anything." I said, "I've got Apple Pay." I said, "I've got money in my bank." I go, can I Zelle you for a pint? Please, I'm so sick." And he's like, he hands me a pint and he goes, "This is it. I'm not going to sell to you anymore." He said, "Please go get help." And I was like, "Thank you so much." And all I could think about on the way back was, how am I going to get my next bottle? And it's not ever about what you've got sitting in front of you. It's how am I going to get the next one or the next one or the next one. And, we talk about inches and seconds. And it was quite literally just that. Like, I had a very small window of opportunity where somebody said they would take me. And I had to muster up enough energy to like put clothes on, and I didn't even care if I packed a bag or whatever, but it was just stop getting, because I was at the point where I was so sick, whether it was just with the dry heaving or with just couldn't hold anything down or in or
Your
nuts.
body was physically rejecting it.
I was dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
this is after surviving stage 4 liver failure.
yeah.
Yeah. Where did you go back into liver failure? No, you're so lucky. I've seen people die, and it's a slow and sad death. The ammonia, you can smell it on them. Like, it's the most tragic thing I think I've seen, and I've seen a lot.
Yeah. I was able to get in the car and get over to Northbound and fell in love with that place, because it was originally the Rock Center, which I had been through several times.
Good old Rock Center.
The old Rock Center.
Saved a lot of lives.
I love that place. And I was there. And of course, I couldn't stay because I had to get back to work. So I told them, I can only do a week and then I got to go. And I left that after a week. And that day I went home. And as soon as I was alone, I went down to the liquor store. And I was drunk that day. And
Same clerk?
no, different guy. Different guy. And I don't know how I had the nerve to go back in there, but I did.
Because we do.
Because we do. We don't
Yeah.
care. And there I was on again I lasted about 2 months of trying to like function at work while drinking and taking pills. And then I was taking edibles too, so I could just feel okay. I mean, it was just this cycle.
Sounds like a nightmare.
It was-
Edibles in general, it was like it's the
horrible.
devil's food or something. Like I ate an ankle off of a gummy bear and I was fucking hyperventilating.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh my god, this is not the same weed that I
This
grew
is
up with
horrible.
when I was a kid. Like
Yeah.
they've like done something masterful to it, and not in a good way.
It knocks your dick in the dirt, and you're just
I
like,
don't even
oh
have
my
a dick.
God.
It grows a dick and then knocks it in the dirt.
Exactly. So I for 2 months was going into work, barely hanging in. Like I was supposed to work 10-hour shifts, managing a restaurant, which was very high paced. Just it was not working out very well for me, and calling out. It was bad. It was bad. I mean, going to the bathroom every 10 minutes with my purse so I could just.
Yeah.
And then finally, I just started putting my alcohol in a Gatorade bottle and just drinking it and out in the open because I didn't have time to keep going to the bath. So gnarly. And
That's what we do.
And then I just remember begging God to please let me go back to Northbound, and I did. I went back and I just surrendered and I stayed. And
That was this time.
yeah, and I stayed sober after I left for a month, and then I couldn't do it anymore again. And it was another inches and seconds. And this time, though, I went to Yellowstone. I was too drunk, and so they wouldn't let me in. And so I had to go to college. And I apparently took flight on a nurse or something. And so they sent me over to Hogue, put me on a 5150, released me back to college and then back to Yellowstone. And then I was in
Did you end up in psychosis in your drinking?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Those were some really ugly
Imagine.
situations. But I did end up having to stay in a hospital for about a week. I had COVID, I had CVID, I had all kinds of stuff. They had me isolated in my own room. It was miserable, and I just wanted to go home. And when I did, I decided like this is it. And my sponsor decided she was going to continue to work with me, which it didn't come as a surprise. I knew she was going to, because she's amazing. And we don't shoot our wounded.
Yeah.
But I was told I needed to get busy. I was told I needed to get busy and stay busy, and so that's what I've done. I went to my Sunday morning meeting, which is called the 902 in Villa Park, and I immediately started making friends, and then I started building up a meal prep company, going to women's meetings, and just saying yes and okay.
Yeah.
Getting really open and honest with my sponsor about where I'm at, how I'm feeling, what I'm doing. And so for the first 6 months of my sobriety this time, I started building up a company and working with my sponsor and just doing the things. I became a speaker recruiter for my meeting. And so I get to have this commitment where I reach out to people and they show up, and it's very fulfilling and rewarding for me.
Yeah, definitely.
I take on commitments at different meetings and I love it. I went to there's a restaurant next to my morning meeting. Super long story short. Anyways, I ended up getting a job there a few weeks ago. And so
Amazing.
I'm balancing that. They're promoting me to manage their Newport location, which is opening up. And I'm kind of getting to do a little bit of everything that I love to do, being creative, being a part of. I love the restaurant industry. So,
Yeah.
I get to do that. And I'm still meal prepping, but I'm trying to keep everything just very modest and put this first.
Yeah.
So like my meetings come first, my step work or anything that I'm asked to do for Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm going to start doing H&I in a couple months.
Okay. And for our listeners, that's houses and institutions. That's where alcoholics go into prisons and jails and rehabs and things like that, and kind of share the message to the addict and alcoholic that still suffers. Do you think that's what you did differently this time than some of your other times?
I just got busy and stayed busy. I stayed true to my word. My sponsor pulled me aside and she said, if you're going to start taking pills and getting loaded and fucking lying in my face again, I'm done. She said, I have a family. I have a full-time job. I've got other women that want help. Don't do it. And I said, okay. And I heard that, and that resonated with me because I don't want to lose her as a sponsor. I just, I try to do what I'm told. Mm-hmm. Which is back to basics. It's very Yellowstone. It's very Kelly Chapeau.
It's very early days. Yeah. Early support. Like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Exactly. I'm desperate. Please. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah. There's a tremendous meeting that I don't get to very often, but it's called Chapter 7 on Monday nights in Garden Grove. And it's where they go through the big book and they dissect it. And it's extremely informative. And I picked up a panel there. And so I take a panel once. So whenever there's a fifth Thursday in the month, I get to take a panel to Northbound. So I get to go back to Northbound. And
amazing.
It's tremendous. And I like to do things like when I have the opportunity, go to Skid Row. When I'm asked to do something like this, I just say yes. And
said yes to everything in your addiction. Say yes to everything in your sobriety.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. What do you have to say to the person that's listening to this? They are out of hope, out of tries, they're just out. And, they can relate to your story. What do you have to say to them?
I mean, I've been hopeless and helpless and thought this isn't going to work again. I have been a retread so many times. I mean, I had 4.5 years at one point. I had 2 years at one point. I've had a year. I've had 6 months. And after so long, you just think, like, is it going to work this time? What's going to be different? If I knew it was going to be different, I would obviously be doing it. I've tried every imaginable remedy, like the book talks about. If I could go out there and shoot dope like a lady and drink like a gentleman, I wouldn't be sitting with you right now. Like, I love drugs and alcohol more than anything else. My biggest fear is that I'm never, ever going to get drunk and loaded again. And my biggest fear is that I will.
Yep.
And I fight with that every single day. I just know what life looks like on this side and how much better it is. And I know what the life on this side is. And it's sad. And it's
not a life.
It's not a life. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I have battled addiction my entire life since I was 12 years old. Before my first drink or drug, I knew I was an alcoholic. I knew something was off.
Yeah,
because it was always different. More. I need more of this, more of that. And it's always been
more cartoons, more juice.
Exactly. Then it became more money, more men, more drugs, whatever it is. I have to have more of it. There's hope though. Like, if you truly want something different, you're going to do something different to get there. And if that means changing up your entire routine, like change up your routine. Like, I've been wanting to get back into the restaurant industry and do what I'm going to be doing, and that requires me to get up really early and to do these things and to prove that I can be the person that they want. I need to prove that to me, and I shared about this at my meeting a couple weeks ago. There's been some Sundays where I don't want to get up. I don't want to go. And I'll close my eyes for a second and I'll see my friend Annette's face. I'm like, oh God, I got to get to this meeting. And it's not about showing up for them. It's about showing up for me. Like, I'm that like people pleaser where I want to make sure they're happy or that I'm doing this thing right for them. And it's like, no, I need to show up for me. Like, I need to do this for me. Having those boundaries and telling people no. No is like a full sentence.
Period.
I need to do for me today. And that's just part of the whole recovery thing. It's you got to be selfish and do for you. And 47 years old, I've carved out my life thus far, and there is room for change, and there is time for growth, and there is opportunity to make things different. A lot of people think I'm too old to get sober, and it's like, no, you're too young to die.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was so dramatic. Like, I'm not going to die. You're so dramatic. But the truth is, like, I'm quite literally going to die out there, know, and
And you have enough proof.
Yeah. I've been to more funerals than I have weddings.
Yeah.
And it's really sad.
Yeah.
It's really sad. But the resources that are out there, if you are truly trying to get sober and stay sober, like, you don't have to wait until a bed opens up at a treatment center. You don't have to wait until you're ready. Just get to a meeting, call another woman or man in Alcoholics Anonymous, ask for help.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many resources out there, and treatment isn't AA. Treatment is a place for you to go and separate yourself long enough to be able to hear a message and to feel better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Truer words have never been spoken. I am so honored that you shared your story with me. Thank you so much for trusting me with it.
Absolutely.
And thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And that's it for another episode of StraitJacket Podcast, and we'll see you next time.